at called scenario analysis. So let me start with biodiversity. And what is biodiversity? Basically, biodiversity is anything that lives on the earth. It's just all living organisms in the world. It is the formal definition by CBD. CBD is called Convention on Biological Diversity. There are a lot of that kind of acronyms in this biodiversity area. I will try to tell all of this. So it says the biodiversity is the variability among living organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity between species and ecosystems. So, before moving nature capital, let me also talk about what is nature. Nature is actually all existing systems created at the same time on the earth. So biodiversity is part of nature. Nature is like kind of all life on the earth together with biodiversity, with the geology, water, climate, everything. Like nature is like mountains, sea, everything. Biodiversity is part of nature. Why I am telling this? Because like in the literature, they usually talk about biodiversity and nature, biodiversity, nature, biodiversity, nature. Like they are using the word in the same meaning. Actually, they are not same. They are quite similar, but not same. It's kind of nature is like the big title, biodiversity is under subtitle of nature. But in the literature, they use these terms simultaneously. So in this lecture, also, I'm going to use them in the same meaning. When I say nature, I mean biodiversity. Or when I say biodiversity, I mean it's nature. So please don't confuse on this. So what gives biodiversity or nature to us? Provides us natural capital like water, soil, like air, that kind of natural capital. It's like you can see, I'm just drinking tea here. I can say that like 95% of this tea is just water coming from natural capital, or just also we have tea. We need soil to grow this tea, right? So it's kind of, I'm 100% depends on this tea. I love tea, by the way. So that's why we need this natural capital to have our, to continue our life. So how is nature without biodiversity? If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, we can see nature without biodiversity. So as I said, biodiversity is everything, every living organisms on the earth. So on the right-hand side, you can see the nature with biodiversity. You can see humans are there, like birds are there, dogs. We can see trees. Like without biodiversity, nature is like kind of very plain, right? There is no living organisms there. This is the difference between nature and biodiversity, to be honest. This photo explains it very well. These two photos explain it very well. So, but as I said, when I talk about biodiversity or nature, I mean the same thing. I'm using these two words in the same meaning in this lecture, but I just want to be aware of the difference between nature and biodiversity. So, why biodiversity is important for businesses? Like as I said, like it provides like raw materials like water for this tea, or like timber, fish we are eating. It's kind of source of raw materials to us. This kind of this called provisioning services. It provides provisioning services for us for agriculture, industry, pharmaceuticals, pharmacist industry, and manufacturing as well. It also provides regulating service like climate, water quality, regulates the water quality as well, and also supporting services for like soil fertility, agriculture productivity as well. And also the biodiversity is important for cultural services as well. It's like kind of in this photo you can see like there are some people here. Maybe they are tourists. They just came here to see this beautiful view. So the culture, one of the aspects of the biodiversity provides cultural services as well for tourism opportunities or contributing to sectors like travel, hospitality, wellness as well. So that's why more than half of the world's GDP is highly dependent on nature. I think the estimated value was over $44 trillion every year. There depends on nature. They say more than half of the world's GDP. This is, by the way, highly dependent on. But when it comes to dependency, 100% of the world, we all depends on nature, to be honest, not just half. So in a recent study, I didn't put the reference of this one here. I will add it later. In a recent study in the UK, I think it's just released last month by Reading University, ecological economists, something like this. They found that biodiversity loss could lead to an estimated 12% loss of the UK's GDP by 2030. So losing biodiversity also has very significant economic impact for countries as well. That's why biodiversity is important, providing our raw materials, regulating our climates, water quality, and supporting services for agriculture productivity and other cultural services like tourism, hospitality as well. So this graph is nice, but also not nice too. I like this graph because it's like colorful and gives some information about our industry's dependencies on nature. As you can see, like the right color is bright or pink. I don't know. It's a kind of reddish red color. So it's high. It represents high dependencies, and the yellow one is medium dependency, and blue one is low dependencies. You can see the agriculture, fishery, food, beverage, all of them like kind of high dependency. They're highly dependent on nature. Their materials, raw materials come from nature. And there are some industries there like real estates, mining, metals, they are like kind of medium dependency on nature, and electronics or information technology, they are low dependency on nature. But I think this graph is about this industry's direct dependencies on nature. It's kind of like, for example, for when you say electronics, they say low dependency, but like for example, the mobile phone, it works with battery. Battery is coming from lithium, right? It's mining. It's highly 100% of dependency on nature. We need this lithium from soil by doing mining to make sure that our mobile phone is working. That's why I said I kind of find this graph is like a little bit is fine, but still could be much more better because like it just direct, it gets the direct dependency on nature of industries, not the indirect one. Yeah. Let me move to other one. In this slide, you can see that this is from a report of World Economic Forum. They publish the World Global Risks every year in January. In this year, in 2024, in January, they also published the global risk. Sorry? Someone is asking any question? Yeah, let me continue. So here you can see that this graph shows the most significant risk that the Earth, the world, may face over the next 10 years. So over the next 10 years, you can see we can face 10 significant risks, and 5 of them relate to environment, green ones. And the biodiversity loss is the third most significant one the world is going to face after the extreme weather events and critical change to Earth system. Actually, all of them relate to each other, interconnected. Like when you say biodiversity loss, like pollution is one of the reason of biodiversity loss, or like extreme weather events is kind of due to climate change. It's also one of the loss, biodiversity loss, like natural resource shortage, one of the reason of biodiversity loss. These all environmental issues are interconnected. That's called wicked problems. I will come to this later. I didn't mention this one in the slides, but I will talk about this as well. So biodiversity risk is the third most significant risk that we're likely to face in the next 10 years in the world. So this graph is also nice. I like this one, but they did this one for Fortune 500 companies, which is the largest US companies. It's not just US companies, by the way. So what they did here, they look at the companies, the top 500 companies, and 600 and no 460 of them from global fortune companies. This what they did, they look at the nature and climate targets of the companies, and they found that 83% of these companies has acknowledged and set target for climate, 83%. But when it comes to biodiversity loss, it's only 5%. Just 5% of these companies, they have biodiversity target or acknowledge the biodiversity target, and 44 of them even didn't say anything. But this rate is only just 1% in climate change, and some of them 51%. They just 51. Is it numbers or percent? It's not clear here. Yeah, it's percent. Yeah, just didn't even acknowledge anything. This shows how we ignore the industries. Like, even though we are highly dependent on nature, this is why this shows how we ignore the nature loss. That's why this is going to be a big issue for the earth. So I think there are a few reasons for this. One of them is, and the biggest challenge in biodiversity loss area, nature loss area, is the lack of data. The area is very complicated. So measuring biodiversity nature is not easy. I mean, like, there are a lot of different types of animals, living organisms, plants, different types of like ecosystem biomes. Like, that's why it's difficult to measure. It's not like climate change. In climate change, like, we have, like, for example, from the Paris Agreement, we have 1.5 degree target for the global target, and we can measure all the companies' carbon emissions, so they can set up their targets to reach 1.5 degree. But when it comes to biodiversity loss, like, even the same company, if they have operate in different region of even in the same country from north to south, the nature could be different from north to south. South part could be like a little bit more dry, but north part could be like rainy, a little bit colder. Like, the animal or plants living in these two areas could be different. It's difficult to set targets for nature, even for the same company operating in the same country. That's why it's kind of a little bit challenging because of the lack of data to measurability of this nature. So in connection with this lack of data, one of the other issue was the lack of standards and frameworks, but now it's getting and developing very fast. We have now a lot of different types of standards, frameworks in around the world, and a lot of different types of tools. Tools also very helpful to measure companies' impacts and dependencies on nature. So we are getting well in terms of these standards and framework. And also here, like, as I said, note that these are Fortune 500 companies, these are US companies, with the previous President Trump, they just withdraw from the Paris Agreement. It seems he doesn't believe the climate change environmental issues. So that could be one of the reasons why the rate is very low in this biodiversity loss research in Fortune 500 companies, because environmental issues can be problematic in the US. And also, if we look at the early adopters of TNFD reporting, there are 320 early adopters. Like, only like 18, I think it was the number was 18 companies was from US, I think, if I am not wrong, around 5%. but 1/4 of the companies, like 25% of companies coming from Japan. They're really doing great. And recently I reviewed 60 companies in different parts of the world for a consultancy service. I'm giving a consultant service to a UK energy sector company for their nature strategies, net positive strategies, biodiversity strategies. So I did review 60 companies, and I found that most of them, and these 60 companies, by the way, they were part of Science-Based Target Network, SBTN, or WBA, World Benchmarking Alliance, or some other nature-related organizations. Even they're like part of that kind of big organizations, they still don't have clearly, most of them, I can say more than 80% of them, they don't have clear targets for biodiversity loss, nature loss, or they don't have like policy for these companies. They have like climate policy, but no biodiversity nature policy as well. Quite similar. I mean, this is like for US companies, but the situation in Europe is also quite similar. So what are the reasons of biodiversity loss? So biodiversity loss means is the reduction in any aspects of biodiversity. So we are losing our species, plants, living organisms. So what causes this? According to IPBES, IPBES is the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. This is quite new. I think it's, it's established in 2012, if I'm not wrong. The members of the IPBES are governments. They are part of these services. It's similar to the IPCC, Intergovernmental Platform for Climate Change. It's established during the 90s, I think this one. So they identify 5 main drivers of biodiversity loss. One is land and sea use change, climate change, pollution, and natural resource use and exploitations, and invasive alien species. I will just talk about them and give some example how they are causing biodiversity loss. So let's start from the land and sea use change. Like with our activities like agriculture or urban developments, building new flat apartments in the cities, especially in the agriculture areas, and other land users and or sea users, reduces the natural habitat for the available species. When I say species, like animals, plants, other living organisms, everything. This leads to habitat loss and fragmentation as well. Like, for example, the deforestation in the Amazon rainforest is quite a famous example. It destroys the habitats for countless species when we lose this Amazon rainforest. So another reason is climate change. Right, like with the climate change, you know, the weather change, and it affects uh, other species as well, like especially the losing coral reef ecosystems. It's quite important. It's one of the typical points of climate change as well, losing the coral reef ecosystem, and also deforestation. Amazon rainforest is another typical point for the climate change. So the climate change also affects species, habitats, and the timing of biological events, stripping ecosystems and leading to biodiversity loss as well. Another reason is pollution. Like we have a lot of pollution in this after the industrial revolution. It's like industrial waste, plastic pollution, and other pollutants, etc. We are kind of polluting the soil, the sea, the world. So that's also led to losing like or other species like fish or birds or bees, that kind of species. This also affects the biodiversity. It causes biodiversity loss as well. So the fourth one is natural resource use and exploitation. Like we are using, like the world population is increasing faster. We need more natural resources, right? That's why we are doing a lot of like over harvesting plants, overfishing for foods and for medicine, that kind of things. And this also lead to biodiversity loss as well. And the last one is invasive alien species. It's also like the non-native species. If they go to somewhere else, they create big problems there. They just destroy the native species and they just spread fastly, and they cause another biodiversity loss issues there. To give an example, you can say that introducing the brown tree snake to Guam has led to decline or extinction of several native bird species. So these all 5 biodiversity loss drivers by IPBES, they are all interconnected. It means that one can cause another one, can be another reason. For example, like when we say climate change, like because of the climate change, sea levels, the sea temperatures, they just increased. Like for example, to give some example from Turkey, my country, like we have the south part of Turkey, we have the Mediterranean Sea. So now we have started seeing like lionfish and globfish from the Red Sea. Red Sea is the kind of between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, this through Suez Channel. They are coming, the redfish and lionfish, they are coming to Mediterranean Sea, Turkish waters through these Suez channels. And what is the problem there? Like you can say, okay, these are also fish, they can come here, but the issue is that these are poisoned, poisonous fish. So people cannot eat them. If they eat them, they will probably have a lot of health issues. So another issue is that they are kind of creating, they are kind of a threat to other species there. They're just killing them and destroying them, and they're spreading a lot. And the issue is that they don't have any nutritious or economical benefit as well. So kind of they're destroying all fishing industry as well. So that's why government is like paying around $1 per tail for all these fish. Like if you are a fisherman, if you bring like 10 lionfish tails, the government will pay you $10 for this, because they don't want that kind of invasive aliens in the Mediterranean Sea that cause problems. So this kind of problems is called wicked problems. Wicked problems, like if you look at the definitions on the internet, says there is no clear definitions. Even that's why there is no even clear solutions for these wicked problems, environmental issues. So what are wicked problems? Like wicked problems are problems that are difficult to define, like difficult to find solution, and in the most of the case there is no solution. Like this could probably will be the case for climate change as well. We are just trying to minimize the effect of climate change issues or biodiversity loss drivers, because to have a clear solution will be difficult in this case, because there are different parts of stakeholders, in different types of stakeholders in this. For example, like we are doing scenario analysis for business with businesses. But when we do this scenario analysis with businesses, the issue is that we need to take care of the people living in this area, like doing agriculture, or we need to take care of the government, what kind of regulation they have, or maybe the other things like NGOs, non-profit organizations, that kind of thing. We need to take care of all these different stakeholders. Why? Because if we do something for the benefit of the business, it can cause problem for the, for example, indigenous people doing agriculture activities in these areas. So one activity can cause a problem. We can say unintended problem, but still it's a problem. So that's why we need to work together with different parts of stakeholders, bringing them together. It's difficult. It's difficult to bring all of the, even identify all stakeholders. We don't know. That's why it's difficult to find a solution. All we do is just try to minimize the effect of all these environmental issues. So after this, let's move to the second part of the session, which is about corporate nature reporting landscape. As I said, this is like very new. like when you look at this, there are a lot of different types of, by the way, the standard tools benchmark. I just put the important one here. And I can say that except like maybe CDP and GRI, the others are kind of less than 5 years old, you know. They are very new. Everything in this area is quite new. Let me just talk about like some of them, like, and then I will just move to our main interest, TNFD here. Like, as I say, it's difficult to measure the nature. That's why we need some tools to show the companies that the dependencies and impact on nature. So we recently have several tools. The most applied one, most commonly applied ones like Anchor and IBET. Anchor is initially built for financial industry to see that when they give loan to the companies, to how is the risk of these companies in terms of nature. But now I can see that some companies, non-financial companies, they also apply Anchor as well to see the impact and dependencies. IBET is also same. It's for organization companies as well. So here the most all the standards. Maybe it's worth to talk about GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives. They had GRI 304 for biodiversity, and I think they launched this one in 2006, 7, something like this. But in January, they changed this year, in January, February, they changed it. They updated their GRI biodiversity standards, and they made it GRI 101 now. So this is the issue with this one. It's a good, by the way, it's like a lot of companies, they are using this one to report their biodiversity impact. Like the one of them is like kind of Iberdrola, the one of the biggest energy company, the Spanish one. I know they are reporting their biodiversity impact since 2007, I think. So the issue with GRI 3101 is that it's an impact standard. It doesn't ask companies to report their dependencies, which is very important. Like, as I said, we are depends on natural resources, but GRI is like only ask for impact. So ISSP is the new one. This is from IFRS, International Financial Standards. Standards is kind of new, they newly established, and the World Benchmarking Alliance, WBA. This is a benchmarking. They have 2,000 keystones companies, and they have 7 different benchmarking areas. One of them is nature. What they are doing, they have a methodology. It's a very complicated methodology. They have more than probably 100 instruments there. They're just doing if they have biodiversity policy, if they have like some business model related to biodiversity, if they have like board members, they have biological diversity background, like they have a lot of that kind of instruments, and then they give scores to the companies and to see their benchmark compared to others. So here, as I said, I'm going to talk about Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure, TNFD. Let's move on this. TNFD, what's TNFD? TNFD is a framework, actually. I put it here as a standard because I didn't put a framework column here. It says it's TNFD is kind of giving a standard framework for companies to report their impact and dependencies on nature. So they have recommendations. I'll come to these recommendations here. These recommendations aims to provide a standard framework for organizations to assess and manage their nature-related risk and opportunities. As I said, it's very new. They just released their beta version just 2 years ago, and then their completed version, the final version, just last year in September, 9 months ago. And they are now still doing a lot of piloting and getting some more information from the companies who apply TNFD to improve it further. It's quite new. I don't know, have you heard TCFD? It's called Task Force on climate-related financial disclosure. Instead of nature, you can say climate-related financial disclosure. TNFD framework is based on exactly the TCFD, is quite similar, but from the perspective of nature. So these are the TNFD recommendations. Mainly they have four subtitle: governance, strategy, risk and impacts, impact management, and metrics and targets. So they ask the organizations to have a strong governance of nature-related dependence and impacts, and build their strategies based on and put nature into their financial decision making as well through the strategy. Can have a look at this maybe later. Maybe we don't have time. Maybe I should go a little bit quicker. And risk and impact management, how you what are your risk and how you manage all this risk and impact as well. And metrics and targets about related to data, what kind of metrics you use and what kind of targets you have, how you monitor these targets, etc. That kind of things. So let's move to scenario analysis. And by the way, here in the strategy sections, the scenarios are here. Describe the resilience of the organization's strategy and natural risks and opportunities, taking into consideration different scenarios. This is where TNFD asks organization, businesses, companies to do their scenario analysis here. We will later come why scenario analysis is important. So what are scenario analysis? Scenario analysis actually is not something new. It's been here more than 100 years or maybe even thousands years old. Like the first attempts of scenario analysis we can see from the wars, like when they go to the ancient time, when they go to war, they were doing some planning scenarios. If this is the issue, what we are going to do if this is the case. They are doing all scenarios. But in more contemporary world, I mean in the modern world, we can say that the scenario analysis arose from the future studies movement from the 1970s. They were working on some future studies. So in the more recent global scenarios, we can say that it started from the Brundtland report. And then like Brundtland report is that they commissioned, I forgot the name of the guy, surname is Brundtland. They commissioned him to look at the environmental impact of the environmental impact on the economy, that kind of things. And what he did a report after that. Like they started doing scenario analysis. By the way, after this report in I think it's completed in 1988 or 1987, I don't know. It should be 88. So the chartered accounts in Scotland, they also commissioned an accountant in 1988 or 1989 to look at these environmental issues from the accounting perspective. That's where environmental accounting arose. I mean, like it started from 1990s. They commissioned Rob Gray to look at the environmental impact from the accounting perspective. This is where scenario analysis comes from first, like from the wars, and then from the business, from the future studies, and then second wave is from the effect of environment on the economy. So there are different types of scenarios, and definition of scenarios. I mean, they are quite similar, but they're a little bit different. For example, in Jack, it all says description of possible set of events that might reasonably take place. Or like this one, like plausible, challenging, and relevant stories about how the future might unfold, blah blah blah. And then TNFD say it's a set of plausible descriptions or narratives that about how the future may develop based on a coherent and internally consistent set of assumptions about key driving forces and critical uncertainties, blah, blah, blah. This is like, you can make a lot of counts of scenario analysis definitions, but the one key characteristic is that the scenarios are not predictions. You are not predicting, forecasting the future. You are just doing some assumption, plausible assumptions, plausible descriptions for the challenging for the uncertainties as well. So it's not, scenarios are not predictions. Please don't forget this one. So what is the purpose of scenarios? It's to explore uncertainties and identify knowledge gaps as well as the potential consequences of decision or a range of possible future paths. So scenario analysis helps organizations to understand and manage their financial risk and opportunities related to nature biodiversity, and they help them to put this nature and biodiversity into their strategic planning and decision making. This is very important because that's one of the reasons why they are now trying to focus on nature and biodiversity loss, because they want to put the companies, they want to put this biodiversity loss issue into their decision making, and that's where scenario analysis can help them. So there are different types of scenario analysis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 types of scenario analysis here. First two are important because TNFD, they also mention about these two scenarios into their recommendations, into their TNFD scenario guidance. So in explorative scenarios, it starts from the present, it starts from the today, and you're exploring set of assumptions for the future, but by taking care of physical and transition risk. And what is physical risk? Physical is like kind of extreme weather, like heat waves, like floods, water scarcity, that kind of things like that you can see with your eyes, you can feel these physical risks. Transition risks are like change in policies, technologies, that kind of things that can create risk for businesses. So in explorative scenarios, you are just in the present and you want to create your scenarios, and you say, oh, if the policy is like this, if the policy is like getting tougher, and then also the physical risk, like extreme weather is getting like this, I may follow this way. And in the second potential scenario, say, oh, if the policy is like not enough, but extreme weather is going high, or technology is low, like I am going to do this. Or you can say that, oh, the extreme weather is going down, physical risk, and but transition risk high, I am going to do this. You are just defining potential scenarios from today's reality in the explorative scenarios. In normative scenarios, you have a target for future. Like think about that, like your company have, like, for example, in the next 5 years, they want to grow 20%. This is your target, 20% for the next 5 years. And then you are making scenarios to reach this 20% growth in 5 years. Normative scenarios is same. You just have a target there, and then you are just creating your scenarios based on this target to reach this target. So this is also why it's also called target seeking scenarios. So in quantitative scenarios, this is like kind of a little bit challenging when it comes to nature scenarios, because there is not enough data. That's why companies are right now is avoiding to doing some quantitative scenarios, because they can create some risk for them. If they cannot explain them very well to the investors, they have risk to lose investors. That's why, like the company I'm working with together to do their biodiversity strategies, they also avoid quantitative scenarios. Qualitative scenarios quite similar to explorative scenarios, and reference scenarios are like they describe the future state of the society and environment in the absence of additional new and focused environmental policies. If something new coming up, they're just creating this scenario based on this. And policy scenarios, they just consider new policies, but this is also somehow issue because they are ignoring physical risks as well. So in TNFD, they mention about these two scenarios, explorative scenarios and normative scenarios. and they suggest explorative scenarios because of lack of data. We don't have enough quantitative data to create normative scenarios. That's why they suggest explorative scenarios. So in TNFD, they suggest to do scenario analysis as well. How? They focus on two key elements. One of them is physical risk and other one is transition risk. In physical risk, as I said, is the degradation of ecosystem services, and it's linked to the climate change, like extreme heat waves or floods, drought, water scarcity. That kind of things are physical risk. And transition risk is like change in policies, change in technologies, that kind of thing. So they build 2x2 matrix, this one based on physical risks and transition risk. So they have 4 different narratives in their suggestion, in scenario analysis suggestion, 2 different narratives. So in these narratives, what they try to do is like, if the, like, for example, if the transition risk is low, but physical risk is, for example, like high, transition risk is low, physical, what kind of scenario your company may face in the future? Or if the transition risk is high, if physical risk is high and transition risk is high, what kind of scenarios could face your companies in the future? They are trying to create some narrative stories, assumptions for the future for the companies. But of course, this is like kind of giving some standards, but every company, they have their own reality, their own stories, so they can change all of this. I mean, this is not like you have to do this. No, you just have your team and create your own story based on this 2x2 matrices. One thing is important here is that at TNF, they also didn't mention, when they create that kind of scenarios, it's like kind of sometimes perceive them like this could be like low physical risk, low transition risk. This could be the, like, for example, best scenarios. If this is the best scenarios, we are going to face this, then we will prepare for this. Or high transition risk, high physical risk. This is the worst scenario, for example. So this is blah blah blah. Then, and these are kind of moderate scenarios for future. So if companies, sometimes they do choose one of these scenarios, and in this case, if they have like a kind of like 3 or 4 options, they are always, not always, they are mostly going with the moderate ones. This is kind of creating bias. They just ignore the more severe one. They just prefer to go with moderate one. It's kind of creating bias. So how the companies implement, develop their scenarios? First, they are developing the narrative. Narratives are stories here. If they have low transition risk, physical risk, what are the possible assumptions for companies? Creating these narratives are the first stage for creating scenarios. I mean, also in this stage, you are looking at which type of scenarios you are going to use, like normative one, explorative scenarios, which one you are also talking about this. And then you are looking at conducting specification, use of models, which models you are going to use based on your data you have. You can choose your models. There are different types of models based on the availability of data. And then you move to the producing outputs. Decide types of outputs, consider scenario expansion, find scenarios, etc. And this also step-by-step guide how you are doing all these scenario analysis. It looks easy from here, but it's not easy. It's very difficult to create scenarios, and most of the case, companies, they don't have enough human capital to build scenario analysis. I mean, they need to get some expert to do this, maybe from ecological background for companies, or biological background. They need expert, or some computer science background, because this mapping or creating scenarios this kind of requires high level capacity. So companies kind of struggling to create scenario analysis. That's probably one of the reasons why we have only one scenario analysis so far. So they need human capital. So when we create scenario analysis, we need some timeline. Like we usually, how is the timeline in scenario analysis? We usually put some targets like 2030 for climate Paris Agreement, or 2050 or 2100. We put something else like, for example, 2050. We are creating our scenarios based on 2050. But what we do there, every 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we are just updating our scenarios. If there is something new happen, we just create scenarios based on 2050. But every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we are just doing some updates if it's needed for all scenarios. This is how they build their scenarios and timeline scenario horizons. So this is actually not a biodiversity scenarios. This is a climate scenarios, SSPs, shared socioeconomic pathways. This is a set of narratives, 5 narratives actually. I don't want to go in detail with this. Its narratives are very long descriptions. These 5 narratives describe future socioeconomic development trajectories, like combining aspects of demography, about economic growth, technology, and governance, reflecting different challenges for climate change, mitigation, and adoption. So it is quite similar to the by nature scenarios, like socioeconomic challenge for adoption. You can say that this is like kind of transition risk, and social challenge for mitigation. We can say that physical risk transition is quite similar, I think. So this is climate scenarios. So why we have climate scenarios in nature's and biodiversity scenarios? Because when we move to the case study, how we will see that they use SSP in their nature scenarios. So let me explain what is CAO and why they use climate scenarios into the TNFD nature scenarios. So CAO is a Japanese company, and I think if I'm not wrong, it's in chemical industries, means they are highly depends on nature. So their raw materials coming from nature. So they have only a scenario analysis in the world. I mean, the TNFD scenario analysis. The other 19 reports, they don't have 19 companies. They don't have any scenario analysis. The CAO has a scenario analysis, but I don't know whether this is a good or bad scenario analysis, because we don't have any other scenario analysis to compare. So this is the only one. It looks fine, but may not be fine as well. We don't know. So what they do here, as you can see, like from the TNFD 2x2 matrix, they have like 4 narratives here. They try to build these 4 narratives here. Ahead of game go as like kind of good scenario, bad scenario, moderate scenarios. The kind of degree of nature degradation is here, physical risk, and this one is physical risk. This is transition risk is here. And they also have SSP scenarios here. Again, like good scenarios, bad scenarios, moderate scenarios as well. And they also did customer segmentation for the customer mass and small mass. So it's supposed that they have only TNFD scenarios in their TNFD reporting, but they also do SSP scenarios. Like, just please ignore this one. This is very important, but it's not kind of scenarios. It's like kind of helping to build scenarios. Why they had SSP scenarios? For me, like this is my opinion, they may have struggled to create some quantification for TNFD scenarios. So they used also climate change scenarios, this one, to create some quantitative scenarios. Here we don't know how they did, why they did, but this is how they create their biodiversity scenarios, not just TNFD 2x2 uncertainty matrix. They didn't just use this one. They got help from SSP to create the scenario analysis. This also creates some issues whether the TNFD 2x2 matrix is not enough to create scenario analysis or something else. So, as you see in the good scenarios, transition risk and degradation is high. What's going to happen, like sending environment and economy in position, nature is degraded, like the physical risk, lack in effective regulation, and company so the regulation is low, the degradation physical risk is high. This is the worst scenario. What's going to happen? And the good scenario, degradation, the physical risk is low, and the governance of policies and technologies are kind of high. Like this is a good scenario. Measures for both local and nature and climate, rise of strong regulation and high environmental aware consumers as well. So SSPs, they have good and worse scenarios. So how they used this one? From this, they created actually two scenarios based on mass, small mass, and the good, as I said, like good scenarios and bad scenarios. In the good scenarios, they also divided into mass and small mass. So let's look at the next one. It gives us the good picture. So they created their scenarios based on, like, as I said, physical and transition risk. This is the what TNFD asked them to do, physical risk and transition risk. They put these two into central to their scenario analysis. And transition risk, they divided market according to legal policy, legal change, market change, reputation, technology change, that kind of thing. For physical links, change in the climate, nature, natural hazard, that kind of things. So in good scenarios, moderate scenarios, and bad scenarios, what's going to happen? They show the impact. Like, for example, if the policy in good scenarios, it's large, impact is, the probability is high, the impact will be large. Like, for example, in changing consumer preferences, this is also one of the transition risk for the companies. They can face the customer may want more natural, environmental friendly products. How the impact is going to be for the car corporations as well. This is like very complicated scenario analysis. I'm still trying to read it. I don't know how many times I read, but it's like kind of complicated to understand. That's why we are going to go to Japan next month, and hope we can meet also car corporations to talk about this, how they created this scenario analysis, what kind of experts they hired, or did they hire any expert to create these scenarios. Yeah, I think I went a little bit beyond 45 minutes. This is basically how Cow created their scenario analysis, by the way. And this is the end of the session, I think. Yeah, thank you very much. And if you have any question, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Neytullah, for your presentation. Maybe from the participants who wants to ask question, please raise your hand by using the Zoom feature, or you can type your question in the chat section.
Okay, Miss Vidya, can I ask to Mr. Neytullah?
Okay, please, Ms. Antri.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Neytullah.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for the insight about biodiversity and the business. Okay, if we talk about species diversity, Indonesia is home to approximately 17% of all plant and animal species in the world, and
Yeah.
making it one of the most mega diverse countries globally. And we have tropical forests, including rainforest and so on. And also we have like marine biodiversity. And you know that Indonesia waters are among the most diverse in the world. And about your explanation, we have same problems about maintaining biodiversity. In Indonesia, there are quite a lot of companies that use non-renewable natural resources, in carrying out their business operation. And so far, our government, has always implemented a sustainability point. We know about SDGs or GRI that must be carried out by all companies in our country. And what is currently being done is to implement a carbon tax. And so I have two questions for you. First one is about what kind of sustainability action can significantly reduce or minimize loss of biodiversity? And the second
So
one, what kind
so
of sustainability action?
Mhm.
Okay. And the second one is about what are the potential business benefits of setting biodiversity target, and how can companies effectively communicate these benefits to internal and external stakeholders? That's to my questions. Thank you.
So what was your first question?
My first question is about sustainability actions.
Actions by
In your opinion?
By companies, right?
Yeah, by company. In your opinion, what kind
Yeah.
of sustainability action that significantly reduce or minimize loss of biodiversity?
Like as I said, as you said, they don't use renewable resources like they have to use to that kind of resource to reduce their impact on nature. But every company's reality is different, like based on their industries. Like for example, in the chemical industry, they have some toxic waste. They should find a way to destroy this toxic waste in a way that they harm the environment very less. Or like when it comes to fishing, like they are doing, if they do overfishing, they should overcome this to make sure that we get the fish populations in a sustainable way. We can always have this, but if you do overfishing, we will not have some fish in near future. So it depends on the companies and how they do some actions. Also depends on the industries as well. So there are plenty of actions they do, but why they don't do that kind of things is that because that kind of actions are kind of costly. They need to put some money. But if they don't do this, this comes to your second question, what's going to happen? If they don't do this, they are going to lose their future benefits. Why? Because like if they don't do that kind of precautions, they are not going to have some raw materials. Like as I said, if they do overfishing, they are not going to find fish to hunt and sell. It means that this is the end of these companies. It's kind of they're just finishing their future. So that's why they should take some precautions for their future. I mean, if they want to exist in the future as well, they should take some precautions. And when it comes to stakeholder, they should always be in touch with stakeholders. Like as I said, like the mining industry, for example, when they do some mining in some mountains, there are some local people there. This local people are also a different state. It's a stakeholder, not just the government that regulate this mining area. They should always be in this in talk to this kind of stakeholders because they shouldn't damage their habitat as well. Probably people in this mining area, they are doing agriculture there. If they stop doing agriculture, then what's going to happen? We will find less fruit, less tomatoes, for example, and then it will increase the price of tomatoes. It will affect all of us. We need to pay more to get tomatoes if we lose all these farmers in this mining area. So it's important to talk different stakeholders as well. Like when I say stakeholders, not just governments, businesses, like and agriculture, indigenous people. There are a lot of different types of stakeholders, even like animals living in these areas. They're also stakeholders. Like even bee. If you lose bees, like they are doing pollination, they're kind of one of the best pollinator. When they do this pollination, thanks to their pollination, we get some new trees, new flowers, new plants. They also contribute our planet. You know, this is also one of the stakeholders. Of course, you cannot talk to the bee, but you need to take care of them. Yeah, I don't know whether I can answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you. The question is answered.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you for the question, Miss Tantri. Is there any other question or next questions from any other participants who wants to ask?
I think I have a question, Vidya. Sorry, I'm not raising my hand, but this is really an interesting topic.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Please,
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Khaled.
Okay. Yeah. Neytullah, recently I did a paper about rational sustainability. I mean, the paper talks about the extent to which a company pursue sustainability. I mean, I think included in the in that sense is about biodiversity is related or linear with the benefit they can get. Yeah, I'm wondering, is there so far, for example, a research or survey that, for example, try to find out what would be the the perspective of investor regarding the biodiversity disclosure, or perhaps providing scenario analysis? I mean, are they valuable in the eye of investor or something like that, so that perhaps, I mean, it's very difficult to push the company. This is something valuable. That's probably
Exactly.
yeah, okay, all right,
Exactly.
thank you.
This is one of the issue as well. Looking at the issue from investor perspective, I think there is a recent paper called NGFS. I don't know this. It's called NGFS 5 hours. If you write it NGFS 5 hours paper, maybe you can find. It's not older than 6 months. I think it's quite new. They're trying to look at this issue from the investor's perspective as well. But there is no a lot of paper, even probably no more than 4 or 5 papers to talk about this issue from investor perspective. But one thing is that investors are paying attention for this, and also like the pension funds, one of the biggest, they are one of the biggest investors in the world. They are investing in stocks or other valuable materials that are companies, the kind of organizations. They also started taking care of these biodiversity issues when they do investments at company. They are looking at the biodiversity aspects. I know like AP2 from Sweden and GBF, what was it? The Japanese pension fund as well. They started looking at from the investors' perspective to the companies, how they approach biodiversity and nature loss. But it's quite new topics, still a lot to do. Like when I talk the scenario analysis, like the scenario analysis is there 2x2 matrix by TNFD, but it seems like not that much enough to create scenario analysis with this 2x2 matrices. That's why this COW, they use SSP climate scenarios, because they need to quantify the scenario analysis. This is my opinion, probably. So yeah, this is quite new topic. It's increasing, and looking at from the investor's perspective is kind of very, very new, and there is no enough material there. So I think the only one is NGFS papers they're looking at. One thing for the TNFD recommendation strategy B, I don't know how you look at the strategy. They're looking at business models there. I know you are working on business models. Maybe you can look at this in the strategy sections. They're also looking at sustainable business models as well, whether the companies they're adopting their business model into nature positive ways.
All right. Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's an interesting area to work on. Yeah. Yeah, especially I think earlier Tantri was, highlighting about the potential of biodiversity loss in Indonesia. Yeah, I think that's a very potential topic to work on. Yeah.
I know one of my friends works on this issue on Sri Lanka content.
All right.
If she
Okay.
got some results, I will share with you as well. I think Sri
Oh,
Lanka has quite similar climate with Indonesia, right?
yes, it's pretty similar. Yes. All
Yeah.
right.
It's also the situation, the pollution or other situation is quite similar to that. She's working on this here in St. Andrew University.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, it seems like one of the participants has raised hand. Please, Miss Indriana, you can ask your question. Oh, it seems like Miss Indriana has disconnected, but we also have questions in the Slido. It's from Felix Visabilillah Bayu, and the question is, good afternoon, my name is Felix. I am from Erlangga University, and the question is for small medium enterprise, which is important for its sustainability, environment, or financial performance?
Yes, they're also very important part of the economy, not just the sustainability, small and medium size, especially countries like Indonesia, like Turkey, the developing countries. The SMEs, they're kind of creating almost 90 or more than 90% of all economies. But the thing is that when the governments, they issue new legislations, like they kind of set some targets. For example, in the UK, only FT 500 companies, I think now it's just, if I'm not wrong, 350 or 80 FT 500 companies, they have to report the TCFD report, not small and medium-sized companies. When they do regulation, they kind of always target the big companies. Okay, like the big companies they have to do something, but also we have SMEs there, which consist of the biggest part of the economies. This kind of regulations are weak for SMEs and controlling them. I don't know. I don't have that much knowledge on SMEs, but it's problematic areas for SMEs. And I have a plan on my mind to work on SMEs in terms of scenario analysis, especially like mid-size SMEs as well, because like no one focus on them. So it creates a big problem for economy if they want to, because this is like most of the like for example, let's think about Apple's, like their kind of the production coming from the okay, the supply chain is different, but the different part of the companies, they are producing like different small parts of their mobile phone or the car automotive industry, like they're producing different types of the car material from different plants, factories in different parts of the world. Most of them they're producing by SMEs. These are kind of they're playing key role in the economies, but focusing on sustainability issues for these SMEs are challenging. But in here in TNFD reporting, and also the other reporting, like we have ESRS by EFRAG. ESRS is the sustainable reporting for European Union, and CSRD as well. They are now started focusing on value chain, supply chain. So reporting your own activity now is not enough. Now you need to report your supply chain's impact on nature as well. In TNFD, they also suggest this. Okay, you are getting your your products, but through your supply chain. But what is the effect of this supply chain on nature? You also need to disclose this one as well. So it's a growing area, I can say, these SMEs.
Okay, thank you for the answer. So basically, as a business, we have to identify the whole supply chains involved in that business. So and then we can track the activities and the impact for the environment. And for the small medium enterprise, maybe for now, the TNFD only focus on big companies like 500 companies, because
Not really.
the
TNFD is
complexity
kind of
and yeah,
for all companies. TNFD is for all companies, but it's a kind of, to do this, you need to have good expert
resources.
team, and yeah, I don't know SMEs can do all this with this
Yeah.
human capital they have. Yeah.
Okay. So that answers the questions. And then the next one, Miss Indriana, it seems like you have raised your hand. So please, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Intani and Mr. Ciftci for a very insightful presentation. And this is a really interesting topic here. You mentioned earlier that there are still about 90 companies in the world reporting about the biodiversity, and more than half is from Japan. So this is one of the challenges here. How can company overcome that data limitations in performing that analysis? And maybe the second one is, what are your expectations maybe regarding the role of technology in enhancing the effectiveness of scenario analysis, especially for biodiversity in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, let's start from the second question, because this is very important. Now they start using AI to create some data for companies to measure the impact and dependencies. Like technological advancements, I think it will help a lot to reporting this nature biodiversity issue, because like traditional methods, like kind of it makes it difficult to measure accountability for that kind of things. So I missed your first question.
Then about the limitations, how can the companies overcome the data to perform the analysis?
So the limitations, like the biggest one is human capital. They don't have enough human to do all this analysis, you know, like this was the issue with the TCFD. Now, if you look at the early TCFD reports, they don't have scenario analysis, but like later when they started working with experts, they started getting scenario analysis. I think this is exactly the same with TNFD reporting as well. So we have so far 19 companies, but only one of them, 19 TNFD reports from companies, only just one of them has scenario analysis, which also shows that of course, there is a lack of data, quantitative data. This is very important, having not having enough data to create your scenario analysis. But also one of the things, like as I said, I'm going to go to Japan next month. We will talk some academics, some business, some people from businesses. One of them, they say that we don't know where to start. We don't have enough people to and do all this TNFD reporting. So even if you have data or that kind of things, they don't know what to do, where to start, because of the lack of human capital. I can say these are quite important.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Is that clear, Miss Dina? Or you want to ask another follow-up question?
Sorry, maybe about the second question. How is about the technology regarding to this analysis?
Yeah, as I said, like with the AI, the artificial intelligence, we are getting more better technologies to help them. Like, you know, when you look at the operation side of the companies, like this is a huge area, and the natural habitat is various. You know, we have animals, plants, like living, a lot of organisms, like kind of with AI now, they're kind of getting better map what kind of plants, animals lives there, and how they need to trade them, how to avoid to damage them. So like the technology advancements is getting really much more better now. And like I shared some tools, IBET and Anchor. This also kind of technological tools that, like, you are as a company, you are just going there and just doing some form filling, and then it gives you your dependencies and impact. So I can say like the technological advantage is going better from in terms of businesses, of course. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Indriana, for your question, and thank you, Neytullah, for your answer. Is there any question from any other participants who want to ask? Maybe I want to ask a question. Can I?
Yes, please.
So basically, how many companies already implemented the TNFD right now?
It's so far it's 19 in English version, but there are two, I think two Japanese versions. So far we can say 21 companies, but only we have 19 of them because they are available in English language. We can't read Japanese one. And there are 320 early adopter list by TNFD. TNFD shared this 320 list, 20 companies from across the world. So they supposed to disclose their TNFD report this year or next year. In 2 years, probably we will see over 300 TNFD reporting. And after getting some feedback from these companies, like when they create their TNFD reports, you know, this TNFD organization, they ask companies what kind of difficulties or suggestions and recommendation you have for us to improve this TNFD framework. After getting this, I think it will be much more better. It will be like the TCFD.
Wow, considering its recent emergence, already many companies already implemented this TNFD. So maybe can you provide us the name of the company so this information would be available for participants maybe who wants to read or to seek or to assess how these companies in their reports, in their corporate reports, and maybe understand how the TNFD implement in each companies. Maybe we can, yeah, you can provide us
Do you
a
want me
source.
read them here, or maybe send you the list of companies later? This is the 19 companies. Where is it? TNFD reports. Yeah, there are like AP2, Borgert, CPG, Cow, Corin, Movi, Misu, a lot of companies. I think it would be better to share this list later with Sabur, and then he can distribute the list to you.
Okay.
And also for the TNFD early adopters, let me see. TNFD early adopters. I can share you the link of this one, and then you can have a look at early adopters list. Yeah, let me put it in the chat box. Yeah, this is early adopters of 320 companies, early adopters of TNFD. You can
So
see
they
it
have
by
official website.
Yeah, but they are not, these 320 companies, they didn't disclose their TNFD reports. Only 19 of them have their TNFD reports. The others still working on this. So they supposed to disclose their data in this year or next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe for any participant who wants to do research regarding TNFD, Neytullah has already provided the link in which company already implement the TNFD.
They can also contact me. I can also write my email address into the chat box if they have any question, if they want to do some collaboration on this. They can also contact me as well. Yeah, I just wrote my email there. They can just send me an email and we can just talk about these issues as well.
Okay, thank you so much for providing your email. So maybe
Okay.
any participants who wants to collaborate or want to discuss regarding these topics, you can email Neytullah in the chat box. Yeah. Oh, we have one participant who raised hand and want to ask question. Please, Mr. Andy, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, hi Neytullah. Thank you, Vidya, for
Hi.
accommodating my question. Hi,
You're welcome.
I'm Andy from Lancaster University, specifically in doctoral program accounting. I have two confirmation actually, and then one question regarding with your topic today. The first one, the first one talking about the TNFD scenario. Is it possible to say that this approach is about the future risk mapping? If yes, how did the team can mitigate the risk mapping on the future, specifically for the environmental? The second one is confirmation. Is it scenario analysis more suitable with the for the business than academic research? That two confirmation, the first. And the one question from me is regarding with the title of this topic workshop today is talking about scenario analysis in pursuing the path of to sustainability and the new nature of reporting on nature-related financial disclosure. Could you please share the sample how we have the related financial disclosure in your maybe in your case or maybe in the TNFD adapter?
Oh, this is a very long question. I missed some part, but that makes. So you said you are working on TNFD. Are you working on TNFD or?
No. No.
So for
I just
re,
student in Lancaster University and Mhm.
for regarding risks, I don't know whether this like of course this risk assessments the company is looking at the risk and opportunities from TNFD, but I don't know whether we can use it as a only a single risk assessments tool. Like I don't know, it's okay to tell this one. There's a company, I think this was a Swedish company. Like for example, they want to use TNFD only just for once to later move to the CSRD, European regulation,
Mhm.
European reporting standards. So they want to use TNFD as a step to go to CSRD. So maybe this could be also one of the risk assessment for them. They're using as a risk assessment, but I don't know whether we can use TNFD as only a risk assessment. Yeah, you can do it, but there are other aspects to consider as well. So I missed your second question, by the way. Sorry about this. What was your second question?
Second one is just confirmation. Is it the tools or the analysis, the NFD is more suitable for the business decision or than academic research?
This is actually is made for businesses to report the impact and dependencies on nature. But of course, in academia is part of the stakeholders. We are also dealing with TNFD organization. We do some recommendations, especially those who takes part of GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives, the board member of GRI. They also, some of them is there here helping them to create this new reporting. Yeah, this mainly it's created for businesses, but of course in academia we are also working on them as well. But it's also good for like for me, like I'm working on industry and academia at the same time. It's like kind of working on projects with industry, trying to help them with their scenario analysis and also writing a scenario analysis paper in academia as well. Yep. Any question?
Neytullah, actually, I just wondering regarding with my first confirmation talking about the mitigation of the risk on the future, because if we read this page in the share screen that we have in the first sentence, In a such step, we prepare the different types of future macro environmental scenarios and specified important changes, blah, 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 blah. That's why this is the, this make me, this trigger me to ask you how we define or how we mitigate our risks in the future regarding the macro environmental scenario. That's the idea. Because you put 4 quadrant, right, in the TNFD scenario.
You see the where is my mouse? Yeah, you are talking about this one, right?
Yes,
This
correct.
is
In executive
this is not TNFD report itself. This is a company's TNFD report. I mean, this is a chemical company. So when they do their scenario analysis, they say we care about macro environmental scenarios. But in another company, maybe this is not the case for them. This is specifically case for these companies. I mean, just don't think that all TNFD reports, they are going to look at the macro environmental issues. No, this is just for this company. Cow corporations, they did their TNFD report. They focus on macro environmental scenarios. They said this could be the case for them. For example, there is another company called Nisio, Japanese seafood companies. They also do like, where is the scenarios? Yeah, you see they have tools here, Encore. This is actually mainly built for financial institutions to do some analysis for the companies. They ask for loan from the bank. So they just want to see the risk regarding nature. That's why they have the Encore tools. But now also companies also using this one, Encore, to look at the risk and dependencies. Like again, like as I said, the Japanese company Nisio, they did Encore, they applied Encore tool, but what they found, this is not valid for them. So this doesn't explain their reality in terms of nature. So they did their own assessments. So when it comes to nature, this is kind of the every company has different reality, different impact, nature dependencies. So they create their own ways to assess their impact on nature. This is also this is the one you said is cow corporations. So it means like this is a global company. I think they just operate in over 20 countries. That's why I think they care about more global macro level. But if a company they just operate in Indonesia, maybe this is not going to be the case for them, you know. So don't confuse with this. This is not a TNFD report itself. This is the company's TNFD report. So when they build scenarios, like maybe you also confuse from here, like this is scenario narrative stories. They don't need to use these stories. This is just kind of a general stories for like if the physical risk is high and the transition risk is low. The general storyline is like this. But if you put cow here, they will find their own story. If its physical risk is here or in the chemical industry, so they may not get enough plants or like timber to build to get some raw materials, etc. So these are like general, but or when it comes to companies, they just create their own stories. Maybe that's why you confused on these environmental scenarios.
And the last, my question, could you please share the sample how the TNFD disclosure regarding the financial?
Regarding the financial what? Financial industry, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, like if you go
Pursuing to sustainability and new nature of reporting on nature-related financial disclosure. Could you please share how the TNFD disclosure related with the financial disclosure?
Oh, you mean the financial, non-financial disclosure?
Yes.
I think for this, it's better you go to TNFD recommendations paper and read all reports and see how it's related to financial disclosure would be better, because I didn't particularly focus on this, to be honest. You need to go to TNFD recommendation. Just write on the Google TNFD recommendation. You will see the PDF. It's, I don't know how many pages, maybe 50, 100. So if you look at these all things, you can just link the financial services.
Could you please share the link, maybe, Neytullah?
Let me. There is a TNFD.
I'm so sorry, because this is the link for me.
No, I know. Please don't worry. This, I know it's new to everyone. You know, even it's new to me every day. TNFD library.
Is it possible
Publications
to have
here.
your presentation slide?
I think I already provided. Yeah, they can share the slides with
Okay.
you as well. Yeah,
Okay.
this is publication of TNFD. If you just go there, you can see TNFD disclosure recommendations and scenario recommendations, leap approach. There are different aspects of TNFDs. They publish different types of sources here. And if you are particularly interested in scenario analysis, there is a good paper. It's called Discussion Paper on Conducting Advanced Scenario Analysis. This is really good. I like it.
Okay. Thank you, Neytullah. I wish that we
You're
can
welcome.
someday research together for Indonesia
Yeah,
and for
feel free to email me. I
sure.
provide my email address.
Sure. Thank you, Neytullah. Thank you, Vidya.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Uner, for completing this.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your insightful question, Andy and Neytullah, for your answer. Oh, we have maybe last question, yeah, in the Slido. It's from Anonymous. Good afternoon. My name is Justin. I want to ask a question. How can business integrate biodiversity considerations into their risk management frameworks?
Yeah, that's why, like, can you see these TNFD recommendations? Like, if they look at this TNFD recommendation, risk and impact management, the person who asked this question can get some answer from this. And in detail, if, like, I published the web page of the publications, he or she wants to get more detail, I think he can read TNFD recommendations paper. So it will give some good ideas there as well.
Okay, so that answer our last question. Is there any other question from the participants before we close our session? Okay, so maybe there is no other questions. Thank you for all. Before we conclude, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. Yeah. Please take a brief moment to fill out the questionnaire that has been shared to each one of you, as we already shared the question to each of you. Your input is valuable to us and will help us improve in the future sessions. Okay. Thank you all participants for the engaging questions and insightful answers. As we approach at the end of our session, let's summarize the key points from Dr. Neytullah lecture. So the first one is biodiversity and natural capital are crucial for business sustainability, providing essential services like raw materials, climate regulation, and ecosystem support. However, biodiversity loss driven by factors such as habitat change, climate change, pollutions poses a significant risk, and TNFD advocates for standardized corporate reporting on nature dependencies and impact. And then the last one, the TNFD framework highlights the importance of addressing physical and transition risks and proposed 2030 as a critical checkpoint for biodiversity goals, demonstrating its application through case studies like cow corporations. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Neytullah Ciftci for his invaluable contribution today, and to all participants for their active involvement. We hope you found this section informative and inspiring. Thank you once again and have a great day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We apologize for any inconvenience or mistake that may have occurred during the session. We truly appreciate your understanding and support. Om Santi Santi, Om Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Neytullah, I see you later. I see you.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
see you
thank you,
later.
thank
And
you,
just
Mbak
call
Vidya,
me.
thank you,
Nice to
Neytullah.
see you.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone.
All right.